Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Indeed, by faith our ancestors received approval. By faith we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen was made from things that are not seen. By faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to set out for a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he set out not knowing where he was going. By faith he stayed for a time in the land that had been promised, as in a foreign land, living in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked forward to a city that has foundations, whose architect and builder is God. By faith he received power of procreation, even though he was too old, and Sarah herself was barren, because he considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one person, and this one as good as dead, descendants were born, as many as the stars of the heavens, and as innumerable as the grains of sand by the seashore. All of these died in faith, without having received the promise. But from a distance they saw it, and they greeted it. They confessed that they were strangers and foreigners on earth, for people who speak in this way make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of the land that they had left behind, they could have gone back. But as it is, they desired a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God. Indeed, God has prepared a city for them. Holy wisdom, holy word. Thanks be to God. And now the reading from Luke chapter 12, verses 32 to 40. Jesus is speaking here. Luke 12, beginning at 32. Listen to what the Spirit speaks into your life. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed for action and have your lamps lit. Be like those who are waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet, so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds alert when he comes. But truly I tell you, he will fasten his belt and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them. If he comes during the middle of the night or near dawn and finds them so, blessed are those servants. But know this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. May God bless to our understanding this reading from God's holy word, and to God's name be glory and praise. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. A lot of us learned this verse in Sunday school. We learned the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I changed my sermon title because I decided that so rarely do we get a reading from Hebrews that I really ought to take the opportunity to preach from it. So we're not going to be preaching about making purses for yourselves, which is what's in your bulletin. We're going to be talking about things hoped for. Because we're all hoping for some stuff today, aren't we? We come into this room with hopes, not necessarily for this hour or for this moment, but with hopes for our lives and for our world. By faith, the book of Hebrews claims. By faith, we understand that what we see depends on what we don't see. And that's very true. I like the part where it says, our faith ancestors got tired of living in tents. They wanted buildings with foundations. Though I could do with some more time in a tent myself. They wanted buildings with foundations, a city not made with hands. They longed for a better country, a better world. And I think that's one of the hopes that most of us have in this room today. What I like about Hebrews, and there are some things I don't like, what I like about Hebrews is the fact that it envisions faith as a thing of the imagination. It makes faith an imaginative thing. Whereas John and the John books make belief the most important thing. Hebrews recasts all that and makes it the stuff of imagination. We make a mistake when we act like faith is this little bundle of certainties, and if we can get them all right, they're just like scientific facts. They're unquestionable. But for Hebrews, faith is not blind acceptance of some creed or some set of dogmas. It's a way of imagining the possibilities of life and of our world. Faith is a thing of longing and yearning, hoping, dreaming. Faith is a visionary thing, a hopeful way of seeing things that could be or ought to be and maybe are, but we just don't see them without faith. Maybe you don't have much faith. However much you have, it's enough. Who doesn't long from time to time for a better world than what we see? Faith gives us eyes to see what ought to be. And if you've got that, if you can imagine a better world, then you've got faith. A few weeks ago, I went to a concert down in the Laurel Highlands to hear the band Old Crow Medicine Show. Has anybody ever heard of Old Crow Medicine Show? Yeah, they're great. They're a great band. How should I describe them for the people who have not heard of them? They're almost country music, but not quite. On stage, they look like 6 or 7 of your childhood uncles after too many Yinglings. That's a beer. They've put on cowboy hats, which most of our uncles didn't. Is their music country? Is it Western? Is it Appalachian folk? Is it Americana? They defy categories. But there's a whole lot of banjo playing and mandolins and guitars and harmonica. I would have said that the best thing about them is their lyrics, which are creative and usually funny. But after seeing them in concert, I think the best thing about them is their showmanship. They dance and perform like a troupe of court jesters. Now, most music, I stand by this, is better coming from your speakers than live. I really do believe this. You can try to change my mind about that. When you hear a song on the radio or on Spotify or whatever, Apple Music, it's been cleaned up, it's been edited, it's been tightened. When you hear it live, it doesn't have the same polish. The singers sound like they're shouting. Old Crow Medicine Show, though, is actually better in person than through your speakers because they put on such a great show. I mean, that's the name of their band, right? Plus, when you hear them on the radio or on Spotify, a lot of their music just sounds like chaos. But when you see them performing live, you get to see all the playful stuff that goes into the music and that goes along with all their raucous sounds. They come out on stage all stomping, and if I were down there, I'd show you, but I'm not going to do it up here. Actually, I probably couldn't do it. They do these exaggerated dances, and the front man rolls his eyes, and he's ducking to the music and trying to look like, I guess, what we would have called the Beverly Hillbillies. And he'll be playing the guitar 1 minute, then he'll toss the guitar without looking, and some little stagehand guy, some short guy, will catch the guitar and take it backstage and put it away. And then the front man will start playing some harmonica that was in his pocket between the lyrics of whatever song he's singing. Then he'll toss the harmonica over his shoulder. The same little stagehand will catch it and take it away. They'll all be frolicking and their cowboy hats will fall off, and this poor stagehand is going around collecting their cowboy hats and putting them back on their heads for them so that nobody trips over them. In the meantime, The lead singer is adding verses to the songs you know and adding place names of local things. He's talking about Fort Necessity, which is right next door to the venue. And he's talking about the Monongahela River. Try putting the word Monongahela into a song. And he's talking about old Three Rivers Stadium. He throws in so many facts about Western Pennsylvania into these songs. I wanted to say him, don't worry about it. We're not that proud here. We're not Texas. We don't say the state pledge of allegiance. We don't even have one before class. But after squeezing all these impromptu lines about the Whiskey Rebellion and the Pirates and the Steelers into his song, the lead singer will reach into his pocket and play his harmonica and toss it again. And this goes on for 2 hours straight with no intermission. Where does anyone get the energy to do that night after night? And when you think about it, he's got to make up facts, or he's got to learn facts about Indianapolis or wherever else they're performing. I started to feel kind of bad for the stagehand, running around cleaning up everybody's messes, picking up their hats, gathering their instruments, until about an hour into the show, the stagehand himself comes out playing the accordion. You're like, what? This guy plays the accordion? And a little while later, he emerges from backstage with a flaming baton, which he throws and catches like a fire eater. And he steals the show, the stagehand. The audience was about half local people from down in the Laurel Highlands, real country music lovers. The other half looked like folks from Squirrel Hill, you know, with a master's degree in philosophy, who work at a Starbucks. People about my age mostly, who drove down there in Subarus and Priuses. But that's okay, because I learned after the show that this front man with his cowboy hat and his harmonica and his southern twang is actually from New Jersey. And he went to Dartmouth, and he founded an Episcopal high school in Nashville so that his children could go to it. The cowboy hat, the southern twang, they're a performance, but that's okay. It's what their name says. It's a show. That kind of music is entertainment, and we all need a little entertainment, a little play, a little imagination in our lives. Well, they're not my favorite band of all time, but they do put on the best stage show I've ever seen. They could have just stood up there and sung their songs, and we would have gone away happy. But that's not how they did it. They added some imagination to it, and it took a good thing and made it great. Because our grown-up imaginations are starving. Our grown-up imaginations are thirsty. And how are we going to live into the future that God has for us if we don't use our imaginations to get there? Just like the book of Hebrews says. Our faith ancestors imagined something better for themselves and for the world. That's how we got here. Our imaginations are the greater part of faith. That's why I talked to you about Old Crow Medicine Show. Because faith here in the book of Hebrews is the domain of the imagination. It doesn't tell us, you have to believe. It tells us, imagine this. Imagine it. Hebrews is the mystery book of the New Testament. No one knows who wrote it. She did not take credit for it, whoever she was. But there are a handful of pronouns, first-person pronouns, which in Greek have gender. That's to say, if I say my in Greek, I use the masculine. But someone who identifies as feminine would use a feminine word for my. And so this person, this writer, uses feminine pronouns for herself. So we know it was a woman. Hebrews was written by a woman. Some scholars argue convincingly that it was Priscilla. You remember Priscilla, not the queen of the desert. The one in the New Testament, that female colleague of Paul, who was so influential in the early church, but who I think a lot of the patriarchs started to erase early on. Whoever wrote it, Hebrews is unlike any other book in the Bible. It's tedious in places. It's got long lists of heroes of the faith, and it's a little bit blood-soaked, quite honestly. But it's also rich with good quotes. Did you learn its most famous quote in Sunday school? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Or as today's more accurate translations put it, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. At least the part that doesn't change is those things hoped for, because we all got those. We've all got hopes, some of them so secret and so personal and so tear-jerking that we don't even name them. And then the book goes on to treat faith not as blind belief, not as intellectual agreement with some truth claims, which is how, honestly, many people see faith, but rather it treats faith as an imaginative eye toward life and toward the world and toward the future, a playfulness, an ability to see new possibilities, giving us a view to all that is or could be or ought to be, but which remains unseen. Faith is about these things hoped for, these things that we all imagine, and we do. We all imagine them. We all have dreams that we do not own. If you've been listening lately, you've known that I've been talking about this thing that Jesus calls the kingdom and that Paul calls the new creation. It takes imagination to get there. We grown-ups, we believe the lie that imagination is for children, but that when we grow up, we're supposed to put away our imaginations and we're supposed to deal with facts, realities. We're taught to put away our bankrupted imaginations. And so we scurry between the demands of life, the duties, and we don't even notice the world around us and above us and within us. Our dull daily routines take us from obligation to obligation, and in many of them we don't find any joy. Even acts of faith ought to be full of joy and meaning and beauty. And so often we perform them as rote duties, imaginationless living. It just takes everything for granted. It just assumes that what is has always been and will always be. Imaginationless living never stops to notice the wonderful mystery of these lives that we live. For example, I did not design my body. I would have changed a few things about it if I had. I did not design my body. I did not build it, but it does things that make me marvel. It does things that I'm not thinking about doing. It just knows to do them. And I take them for granted. I don't know how to distribute nutrients or heal cuts or fight off infections. I don't have to tell my body to do that. It just does it. Happily, I don't have to remind myself, oh yeah, it's Tuesday, I got to manufacture some white blood cells. We don't do that. It just happens. Our bodies know it. These things are done by bodies that we barely begin to comprehend, reminding us that we belong to a wisdom that is bigger than us. A wisdom that is bigger than our own field of knowledge. And in that strange borderland where knowledge ends, imagination must be our guide. Imagination, also known as faith. Faith gives us a deeper dimension to life. It gives you a language to think about things and to speak about things that a lot of us never think about or speak about. And maybe they don't do it because they don't have a language for it. Things of life, things of death, things of purpose, meaning, mission. All those things we hope for but rarely name. Faith. Like Hebrews says, it gives you stories to live by. It gives you examples of love and courage. Faith offers us rituals to comfort and sustain us, powerful words to wash over us and to get into all those broken places and help us to heal. Faith gives us a community to stand by us, or maybe even to stand for us when we cannot stand, or when we cannot stand ourselves, to stand for us. Faith gives us ceremonies, parables, beauty, poetry, pageantry, art, and music. I'm always saying it. Where else other than in the shower do you get to sing? Church and the shower, that's pretty much it. It gives us music. Faith adds a richer texture to life. It helps us to see beneath the surface. God help us, a lot of people do faith wrong. They treat it like a list of things to be checked off, a list of hard certainties to hold up against the world and to judge other people by, but that's not what faith is supposed to be. Faith is supposed to keep us mindful that there are wonders and marvels and good things beyond our knowing, within our reach, in every hour of the day. Faith opens our spirits to mystery and gives us the imagination to deal with life. It gives you a sense of the things we're hoping for, all of us, that better country, as Hebrews calls it, for which we're all longing. You know, years ago, I used to put a joke about 2/3 of the way into the sermon, just to rally everyone's attention back right before the end. I stopped doing that maybe 3-4 years ago. I'm going to do it again today. 2 guys bought a puzzle at a toy store. They took it home and they started to put it together. It took them about a week. When they finished, one guy said to the other, "That didn't take too long, that was fun." "No," his friend replied, "especially considering that it says on the box, 3 to 5 years. We grown-ups need to be more imaginative. We need to get better at this stuff. We need to play more. We need to exercise our imaginations. Let them run free. Isn't it possible that our best imagining comes from someplace deep in us that is more akin to memory than to fantasy? Isn't it possible that our best imagining for that better country is, I don't know, a distant memory of our soul's home, of the way the world is supposed to be, that far-off country? Do not be afraid, little flock, Jesus says. It is your parents' good intention to give you the kingdom. And so, little flock, what do we take from here today? A few things. First, remember, faith is not a handful of certainties to carry through life that you have to protect, that you must never change. It's not a bundle of certainties. It is a bundle of hopes to be carried through life. Sometimes you can't quite believe in something that you feel like you're supposed to believe in if you're going to be a person of faith. You can always hope for it. Even things you can't believe in, you can hope for. You can always imagine it. And that, too, is faith. That's the first thing. Second thing, these lives of ours, in all their mystery and all their wonder, in all their unnoticed beauty, these lives deserve to be lived with imagination. If we can do that, how much fuller will they be? They contain meanings and callings that only the imagination can discern. And finally, imagining is a form of prayer. Do you ever think about that? I think everybody prays. The most intractable atheist prays because they imagine things that ought to be. They imagine things that could be. They imagine this better country. This is something that we call envisioning prayer. It's a form of prayer. It might be the easiest form of prayer ever. It doesn't require any words. All you have to do is use your imagination. As the bumper sticker used to say, you never see them anymore, imagine world peace, or the spin-off on that, imagine world peas. All you have to do is picture the world you want, and you're praying for it. Picture the person that you're concerned about healthy and well and happy, and you're praying for it. Picture world peace, picture peace in Gaza, peace in Ukraine, and you're praying for it. Picture a good solution to your own problems, to those of our world, and you're praying for that. Picture the things you hope for. That's prayer. It's the easiest way to pray. Just let your imagination go. And so to recap, faith is not certainty, it's imagining. That's the first thing. Number two, we need to live these adult lives with more imagination. That's thing two. Thing three, let your imagination do your praying by simply picturing the thing that you're praying for, envisioning prayer. Everything is better with a little imagination. I think Old Crow Medicine Show proves that. Our imaginations are holy things. They open us to possibilities that Jesus named the kingdom. They're the assurance of things hoped for. Amen.